College life was a whirlwind, but it was the kind of chaos that made you feel alive. My name is Alex Walker, and I live in a cramped but cozy rental house with 4 of my best friends. We were a motley crew, each bringing something different to the table, literally and figuratively. There was Ethan Cole, the bard with a heart of gold. Ethan was always up to some mischief, but the first to help out when you needed it. He was majoring in speech communications and worked part-time at a local coffee shop, which meant we were never short on caffeine. His quick wit and charm made him the life of any party, and his ability to find humor in almost any situation kept us all laughing. Tyler Bennett, our barbarian, was the muscle of the group, fiercely protective and always ready for a challenge. He often acted before thinking things through. Tyler juggled his studies with a gig at the campus gym, where he trained to become a personal trainer. His boisterous personality and infectious energy made him the perfect guy to have in your corner. Brian Harris, the fighter, was disciplined and strategic, the glue that kept our wild ideas from spiraling out of control. Brian was the academic star amongst us, always on top of his classes and tutoring underclassmen on the side. He was majoring in mechanical engineering, and his methodical approach to life and unflappable nature made him the voice of reason in our group. And then there was Mark Evans, the warlock of our little band. Mark's fascination with the arcane and mystical often led us on some wild intellectual adventures. He was majoring in mythological studies and spent hours in the library, poring over books that most of us would never dream of reading. His knowledge of obscure subjects and his knack for finding connections between seemingly unrelated things never ceased to amaze us. As for me, I was the dungeon master. My passion for storytelling and world building was the heart of our weekly Dungeons & Dragons sessions. I was majoring in creative writing and balanced my coursework with preparing for our games, often staying up late to create the next adventure. You know, it wasn't just about the game for me. It was about creating a space where we could all come together and forget about the stresses of college life. Our house was kind of a place that felt like home, despite all of its flaws. The walls were thin, the plumbing was questionable, and the furniture was a mishmash of hand-me-downs and thrift store finds. But it had character, and more importantly, it had us. We were a family, bound by shared experiences and late-night conversations that ranged from the profound to the ridiculous. We each had our routines and responsibilities, but Saturday nights were sacred. No matter what was going on in our lives, we made sure to carve out time for our D&D sessions. Those nights were our escape, a chance to become heroes and explore fantastic worlds that we could only dream of. We would gather in the late afternoon, and as the game progressed, we'd order pizza, drink coffee, and occasionally indulge in a few beers. It was our guys' night, a time to let loose and immerse ourselves in our shared fantasy world. It was mid-October in Raleigh. The city was ramping up for Halloween, and you could feel it. As a creative writing major at North Carolina State University, I often found myself caught between the allure of academic pursuits and the laid-back lifestyle of the day-to-day grind with the guys. Our weekly Dungeons & Dragons sessions had become a ritual. Every Saturday afternoon, the 5 of us would gather around the makeshift folding tables in our dimly lit basement, where the clatter of dice and the echo of laughter mingled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, pizza, beer, and ridiculous decisions. As a designated dungeon master, I took pride in crafting intricate storylines and challenging quests for my friends. And I must admit, with their backgrounds, it was indeed a challenge, but it was one I took on with a passion. Yet, our gaming setup left much to be desired. The 2 rickety folding tables groaned under the weight of books, character sheets, and scattered dice. They were hand-me-downs from my parents. And I finally decided it was time for an upgrade. But as broke college students, our budget was tight. Determined to find a suitable replacement, I ventured downtown in search of a hidden gem, a sturdy, yet affordable table that could withstand countless hours of storytelling and strategizing. It was time to scour the city for used furniture places. The streets of Raleigh hummed with life as I strolled past eclectic cafes, vintage boutiques, and quaint bookstores. Eventually, I stumbled upon an old, weather-beaten sign swinging gently in the breeze, reading Emporium Antiques. Intrigued, I pushed open the creaking door, the bell above jingling softly. The shop was a treasure trove of oddities, ancient mirrors, dusty books, tarnished jewelry, all steeped in a musty scent of age and mystery. It also had that holiday creepy charm that Halloween brought. A wizened old man with a wispy beard stood behind the counter, peering at me through thick-rimmed spectacles. "Can I help you, young man?" he asked in a voice that crackled like old parchment. I'm looking for a table," I replied. "A table, eh?" He stroked his beard thoughtfully. "What sort of table are you after?" Something sturdy," I said, my eyes lingering on a particularly ornate writing desk tucked away in the corner. "We play a lot of Dungeons & Dragons, so it needs to be able to handle books, dice, snacks, etc." The old man's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Ah, a game of tales and adventures. I have just the thing." He led me to a corner of the shop where a massive oak table stood, its surface polished to a soft gleam. Carved dragons coiled around the legs, their eyes gleaming with the almost lifelike intensity. It was perfect. How much?" I asked tentatively, already mentally calculating my meager budget. The old man named a surprisingly reasonable price, and after a bit of negotiating, we settled on a deal. With the help of the old man and a burly assistant, we loaded the table into my pickup truck and I drove it back to our house with a sense of triumph. That night, over dinner and a few rounds of video games with the guys, I unveiled the new table. Their eyes widened as they ran their hands over the smooth wood and admired the intricate dragon carvings. "This is epic, Alex," Ethan exclaimed, strumming an imaginary lute. "Our D&D sessions just got the major upgrade." We spent the rest of the evening discussing plans for our next adventure, the table now the centerpiece of our gaming sanctuary. Little did we know, this table was going to become the bane of our existence. Saturday afternoon arrived with a crispness in the air, signaling the onset of autumn in Raleigh. The sun cast long shadows across the neighborhood as we lugged boxes of snacks and drinks down the basement where our new oak table awaited its inaugural Dungeons & Dragons session. "All right, guys, let's get this show on the road," I called out, setting down the last box of snacks and grabbing my laptop. Tyler, Ethan, Mark, and Brian followed suit, each carrying their own contributions, bags of dice, notebooks filled with campaign notes, and an array of beverages ranging from energy drinks to craft beers. With the table now surrounded by eager faces and the basement lit by the warm glow of the basement light and some candles for some dungeon ambiance, we began the ritual of game setup. Dice were counted, character sheets organized, and pencils sharpened in anticipation of the evening ahead. "So, what's the plan for tonight?" Ethan asked, twirling a D20 between his fingers. "Any dragons to slay? Princesses to rescue?" I grinned, shuffling through my notes. "You'll just have to wait and see, bard." The realm of Agaroth is vast, unless you feel like you're not up to the task. Mark adjusted his glasses, his eyes twinkling with excitement. Ooh, I can't wait to delve deeper into the lore of the Forgotten Kingdoms. Brian nodded in agreement, his fingers tracing the intricate circuit patterns on his laptop. I've optimized my spellcasting macros. Let's hope they work as planned. And I've brought enough snacks to feed a beholder, Tyler chimed in, spreading out a colorful assortment of chips and dip. We settled into our roles effortlessly, the banter and camaraderie flowing as natural as the dice rolls. As a designated DM, I fielded questions about character abilities, clarified rules, and teased out potential plot twists that lay in wait. With everything set and anticipation building, we decided to roll a d20 to determine who would brave the trek upstairs to order food. Ethan took the honors with a roll of a natural 1, earning both praise and laughs from the group. All right, Ethan laughed, pulling out his phone. What's it going to be tonight, gentlemen? Pizza, wings, or Chinese? Hopefully that'll be the only nat 1 I'll be rolling tonight. As he dialed the local pizza joint, the rest of us settled deeper into our seats, banter filling the room with talks of strategy and college life. The scent of adventure was signaled with the aroma of melting cheese and warm crust. Little did we know, as the hours slipped by and the dice clattered against the oak table, that our game of Dungeons & Dragons would soon transcend the boundaries of imagination and plunge us into a reality far more perilous than any fantasy realm. But for now, in the flickering glow of a mixture of lamps, candlelight, and the laughter of friends, all was well in the world of Agaroth. All right, everyone, listen up, I said, straightening the DM screen and laptop before me. Tonight, in the realm of Agaroth, your party finds themselves back in the bustling city of Eldoria, known for its bustling markets and towering spires. But beneath its glamorous exterior lies a darker secret. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes bright with curiosity. Ooh, I love good secrets. What kind of trouble are we getting into this time, crew? I grinned, enjoying the suspense. You've received a desperate plea from a distressed mother. Sir Cedric, I look at Brian. Your son Damien, has been abducted and taken to the notorious Dungeon of Shadows, a place where creatures are trapped and sold on the black market. Sir Cedric, your wife believes Damien was mistaken for a rare magical creature due to his innate abilities. Mark furrowed his brow, adjusting his glasses. So, we're going undercover to rescue Damien and shut down this illegal operation? Possibly, I nodded, but beware. The Dungeon of Shadows is guarded by traps, deadly creatures, and nefarious individuals who profit from these transactions. Its black market dealings make it a formidable stronghold. Tyler cracked his knuckles with a determined look. Bring it on. We've faced worse odds before. Mark nodded, his fingers drumming lightly on his laptop. I've prepared some new spells that should help us navigate the dungeon. Just point me in the right direction. And I've got my trusty longsword ready, Brian said, his voice steady and confident. Let's make sure Damien gets home safe. With our plans set, we delved into the intricacies of our characters' preparations. Potions were distributed, stealth tactics discussed, and strategic alliances formed within the game. The room buzzed with excitement as each player immersed themselves in their roles, ready to confront the challenges ahead. As the hours passed and the dice rolled, our characters ventured deeper into the heart of Eldoria, gathering clues and braving dangers that tested their resolve. The oak table beneath our hands seemed to resonate with the energy of our game, its carved dragon subtly catching the flickering candlelight. But unknown to us, the table was more than just an elaborate prop. Unbeknownst to me and the rest of the group, the ancient oak had once been used in dark rituals, imbued with a mysterious power that responded subtly to the fervent imaginations and focused intent of those who did anything upon its surface. The table mistook our passionate gaming session for a seance of sorts, a summoning of energies that resonated deep within the realms of magic and possibility. And in doing so, it began to blur the lines between the fantasy we sought to create and the reality we thought we knew. As we strategized and laughed, completely immersed in our quest to rescue young Damien, the basement hummed with the energy of our game. As we strategized and prepared for our journey into the Dungeon of Shadows, an eerie stillness settled over the room. Shadows danced around us, elongated by the flickering candlelight, and the air seemingly charged with a strange electricity. Suddenly, without warning, the carved dragons on the table's surface glowed with a soft, pulsating light. The room fell silent as we exchanged bewildered looks, the hairs on the back of our necks standing on end. "Whoa, what's happening?" Tyler asked, his voice resonating in the basement as he grabbed hold of the table. Before anyone could respond, a swirling vortex of light enveloped Tyler, Ethan, Mark, and Brian, their forms flickering like shadows before disappearing altogether. In an instant, they were gone, leaving me behind, stunned and helpless. I stared in disbelief at the empty chairs where my friends had been just moments ago. Panic clawed at my chest as I realized I was alone, trapped in a dark void that felt like watching through a one-way glass, like watching a twisted reality show unfold before me. No, this can't be happening, I muttered, pressing my palms against the smooth oak surface of the table. They're gone. Meanwhile, in the realm of Agaroth, Tyler, Ethan, Mark, and Brian found themselves materialized in a dense forest shrouded in mist. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and the distant roar of unseen creatures. And then, a blood-red moon cast an ominous glow through the thick canopy of ancient trees. Ethan stumbled forward, his eyes wide with disbelief, instinctively taking in account of everyone else. "Where are we? Alex! Where's Alex? Alex! Where are you?" I ran to the so-called window, screen, barrier, whatever, and started shouting, "I'm right here, Ethan! Turn around, damn it! I'm right behind you!" As I screamed, I pounded the barrier with the sides of my fists, but the shouts fell on deaf ears. From Ethan's perspective, there was no response, only the eerie silence of the forest. He glanced around at his companions, their faces reflecting a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "We're in the game," Mark said quietly, his voice tinged with shock as he looked at himself and everyone else. "Something's taken us into Agaroth." Tyler clenched his fists, his muscles tense with adrenaline. "Well, all right, then stay focused. We need to find out how to get the hell out of here." As they ventured into the surrounding forest, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. Strange noises echoed through the trees, and eerie shadows seemed to shift just beyond their vision. Each step forward felt like a plunge into unknown dangers. Brian unsheathed his enchanted longsword, the blade gleaming faintly in the moonlight. "Keep your eyes open. We don't know what's lurking out there." Hours passed as they navigated the treacherous terrain, their nerves stretched taut with every rustle of leaves and distant growl. The forest seemed to press in around them, its ancient secrets whispering through the branches like a chilling warning. Finally, they reached the edge of a clearing, a jagged cliff overlooking a yawning abyss. Below, nestled in the darkness, lay the entrance to the Dungeon of Shadows, a gaping maw of stone and shadow that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry with fear. That's the dungeon. Mark nodded, his eyes fixed on the ominous entrance. No turning back now. My best guess is that we have to complete the mission. Hopefully, that will be enough to end this. Brian followed up. So, we have to rescue Damien then? Everyone looked at each other in agreement. I turned around and slammed my hands down on the table as it glowed in response. I yelled at it. This better be the right course, so you can frickin' Jumanji us back home, you damn cursed piece of shit! I turned back around and put all my focus back on the barrier to watch this nightmare unfold. With their resolve steeled, they descended into the depths of the dungeon, their footsteps echoing ominously against the cold stone walls. The air grew colder, the darkness more oppressive, as they navigated the ominous corridors and barely avoided deadly traps. And then, in the dim light of a torch, they encountered their first obstacle, a monstrous guardian, its eyes gleaming red with hunger and malice. Tyler gripped his sword tightly, his heart pounding in his chest. Here we go. In the dim-lit depths of the Dungeon of Shadows, Gromish Thunderfist, Finley Silverstring, Sir Cedric Ironheart, and Xander Shadowcaster stood poised in front of the opposing guardian. Gromish, Tyler, tightened his grip on his greatsword, his muscles taut with anticipation. All right, team, let's stick together. We've got to find Damien and get out of here. And maybe surviving is good too. Xander, Mark, nodded, his voice echoing faintly against the cold stone walls. Agreed. Stay sharp, guys. Let's light this candle, he said as he took a stance to cast a spell. As they started running towards the Guardian, their steps reverberating ominously, they encountered their obstacle. A towering creature with gnarled claws and glowing eyes. This was no ordinary Guardian. Its snarl echoed through the chamber, sending a chill down their spines. Sir Cedric, Brian, drew his sword with a resolute stance. Prepare yourselves. We face our first challenge. Don't forget to remember how to play your characters. In the midst of combat, Finley, Ethan, weaved between shadows, his lute at the ready as he unleashed a mesmerizing melody that weakened the creature's defense. Take that, you foul thing from hell! Gromish charged forward with a primal roar, his greatsword slicing through the air with ferocity. Rage! Xander's eldritch powers crackled through the air, bolts of arcane energy lancing towards the creature with precision. Feel the wrath of shadow and flame! Take these 3 eldritch blasts! With the 3 purple bolts hitting their mark, the Guardian fell to its knees as Cedric dealt the finishing blow. Their movements were awkward at first, adjusting to their newfound roles within this perilous realm. Yet with each swing of a blade, each spell cast, they began to embody their characters more fully. Gradually, they addressed each other by their player names, their voices resonating with determination and camaraderie amidst the chaos of battle. Meanwhile, in the dark void beyond the realm of Agaroth, I watched with bated breath, pressing my hands against the invisible barrier that separated me from my friends, as I sweat with despair, feeling helpless. You can do this, guys, I whispered. Just don't die and watch your backs. Back in Agaroth, another creature fell with a final roar. Its monstrous form dissipated into ethereal mist. The chamber fell silent, save for the echoes of their heavy breaths and the distant rumble of unseen terrors. Nice work, team, Sir Cedric said, wiping sweat from his brow. Let's press on. Damien must be close. With renewed determination, They navigated deeper into the dungeon, their path fraught with traps and hidden dangers. Finally, they reached a chamber at the dungeon's heart, a grim cell with thick iron bars. Inside, huddled in the corner, was a young boy with tousled hair and frightened eyes, the missing son of Sir Cedric. Sir Cedric rushed forward, relief flooding his features. "Damien, we've come to rescue you." Damien looked up with wide eyes, his voice trembling.
Dad? Is it really you?
Yes, it's me, son," Sir Cedric said softly, remembering his character being a father. "We're getting you out of here." As they worked to free Damien from his confinement, the weight of their quest felt more real than it should. With hearts pounding and hands steady, they stood before the iron bars of Damien's cell. The air was thick with anticipation as they assessed the lock, a formidable obstacle between them and their goal.
I'll take care of this,
Xander said, his fingers deftly probing the lock for traps. He paused, sensing a faint magical aura around the mechanism.
Whoa, I feel something here. There's a spell trap. Stand back. Let's see here. Dispel magic.
The others stepped away cautiously as Xander focused his arcane powers, disarming the trap with a flick of his wrist. With a satisfying click, the lock gave way under his skilled touch. Everyone looked at Mark with smiles and thumbs up. "Well done, man," Sir Cedric praised, giving his friend a fist bump. "Now, let's get Damien out of here and go home." Damien watched wide-eyed as his rescuers worked. A mixture of hope and fear flickered across his face.
Thank you so much.
He ran across and hugged his dad as Brian, hesitant at first, squeezed the boy tighter. Just as they were about to usher Damien to safety, a distant clang echoed through the dungeon, a warning of impending danger. The sounds of hurried footsteps grew louder, accompanied by the jingle of keys and the harsh commands of approaching guards. I slapped my hands on the barrier. "Stealth, guys! Come on! Every damn time!" Well, at least you checked for traps. "We've been spotted!" Gromish growled, drawing his greatsword. Sir Cedric positioned himself protectively in front of Damien. "Duh! Stealth check? Looks like we gotta fight our way out of this one, crew." Moments later, the dungeon door burst open with a thunderous crash. In poured a squadron of armored guards, their weapons gleaming in the torchlight, led by a formidable warden with a scar across his face and a cruel glint in his eye. "Stop right there, intruders!" the warden bellowed, his voice reverberating off the stone walls. "You'll pay dearly for this!" Without hesitation, the guards surged forward, their formation tight and disciplined. The clash of metal against metal filled the chamber, sparks flying as blades clashed and spells crackled through the air. Gromish swung his greatsword with brute force, knocking back the first wave of guards with sheer strength. "Keep them off balance!" Finley danced between opponents with grace, his lute singing a melody that bolstered his allies' spirits while distracting their foes.
Stay focused, everyone! We can do this!
Xander's eldritch blast lanced through the fray, striking true with precision as he protected the group's flank.
Hold the line!
Sir Cedric fought with valor, his sword flashing in the torchlight as he defended Damien from harm. "Damien, stay close." The battle raged on with chaotic intensity, each of them pushing their limits as they fought for freedom against overwhelming odds. The clang of steel, the roar of spells, and the pained cries of combatants echoed through the dungeon. A symphony of desperation and determination. Amidst the chaos, I watched helplessly from the void beyond, wincing with every encounter my friends had with their enemies.
Hold on, guys! Damn it! No one can hear me!
As the battle ensued, my friends were faring a lot better than I expected. I am so glad they're at least level 10 for this, I said with a slight grin. Blood pounded in their ears as Gromish Thunderfist, Finley Silverstring, Sir Cedric Ironheart, and Xander Shadowcaster clashed with the warden and his guards at the dungeon's entrance. Sparks flew as swords clashed, and arcane energies crackled through the air in a desperate battle for freedom. Gromish bellowed a war cry, his greatsword cleaving through the ranks of guards with ferocious determination. Despite their valiant efforts, the warden proved to be a formidable foe, his skills honed through years of brutal discipline. Sir Cedric fought with unwavering courage, his focus split between defending his companions and ensuring Damien's safety. The young boy clung to Sir Cedric's side, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. Xander's spells lashed out, weaving a tapestry of flame and sparks that kept their enemies at bay. He grimaced as a guard's blade grazed his arm, leaving a searing gash that sparked with arcane energy. Finley's bardic magic wove through the chaos, bolstering his friend's resolve and weaving illusions that confounded their foes. Yet, despite their combined efforts, the tide of battle teetered on a knife's edge. As the skirmish reached its climax, Gromish squared off against the warden in a clash of titans. Their weapons met with a thunderous force, each blow reverberating through the courtyard as they battled for supremacy. With a sudden twist of fate, the warden's blade found its mark, a swift, brutal strike that left Gromish reeling. Pain exploded through his side as the blade bit deep, and he staggered back with a cry of agony.
Gromish!
Sir Cedric shouted, his voice laced with concern. Despite the injury, Gromish fought on with grim determination, rallying his strength for one final push of rage. Together with his crew, they pressed forward, driving the warden and his remaining guards back until they stood at the threshold of the dungeon's gates. With a defiant roar, Gromish swung his greatsword in a sweeping arc, forcing the warden to retreat. The path of freedom lay open before them, victory within their grasp.
Go!
Gromish urged through gritted teeth, his voice strained with pain.
Get Damien out of here!
Sir Cedric nodded, his heart heavy with worry for his injured friend. With Damien in tow, they sprinted through the gates, the cold night air of Agaroth whipping around them. In a flash of blinding light, reality seemed to warp and bend around them. The echoes of battle faded, replaced by the familiar surroundings of their rented house near campus. My vision also blurred as a thick fog lifted and faded, revealing the table and cement walls of the basement. The others stumbled into the basement right after I appeared, panting and disoriented, their bodies still thrumming with adrenaline.
We made it!
Mark breathed, leaning heavily against the wall. But as a rush of escape subsided, Tyler sank to his knees with a guttural cry of pain. His hands clutched at the wound in his side, blood staining his shirt.
Tyler!
Brian exclaimed, rushing to his friend's side. The others gathered around, their expression a mix of relief and concern. The injury was real. A brutal reminder of the consequences that had followed them back from Agaroth. Tyler winced, his breath coming in ragged gasps.
It's real. The wound, it's real.
As everyone gathered in a huddle around Tyler, their adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Damien, the young boy they had rescued, stood quietly beside Brian, eyes wide with wonder and disbelief. Fear etched lines of worry on our faces as we realized the gravity of the situation. Standing on the other side of the table from the group, my eyes widened with shock and guilt.
We need to call 911,
Mark said frantically, his voice breaking through the stunned silence. Damien watched with wide eyes as Mark dialed for help, the sound of the emergency
911,
dispatcher's
what's your
voice
emergency?
echoing through the basement. "Stay with me, Tyler," Brian urged, his voice trembling while he held a rolled-up shirt against the wound. "Help is coming." The minutes stretched out, each second weighing down by a palpable tension in the room. I started pacing back and forth. "Is that Damien?" Ethan responded, breaking from his shocked trance. "Yes, it is. But how?" I kicked the table. "This damn thing!" But let's focus on Tyler. "Mark, what's the ambulance's ETA?"
They're on their way,"
Mark announced, his voice strained with worry. As we waited for the paramedics to arrive, the reality of our adventure sank in. The guys had survived Agaroth, but the consequences had followed them back, stark and unforgiving. Damien stepped forward timidly, his gaze shifting between the injured Tyler and the solemn faces of his rescuers.
Thank you for saving me."
Tyler nodded his head, not able to focus on words at the moment. Brian managed a weak smile, his hand resting gently on Damien's shoulder. "You're safe, kid, son. That's all that matters." As sirens wailed in the distance, signaling the arrival of help, I felt a strong shock of realization.
"Guys, damn! We gotta hide him! How do we explain why he's here?"
Brian grabbed Damien by the hand and said, "Come with me, Damien. I need to keep you safe. Guys, I'm gonna put him in my room for the time being." With that, he ushered the kid upstairs and opened the front door to guide the emergency workers to the basement. After the ambulance workers stabilized Tyler and took him to the hospital, the police took statements about the accident, which we chalked up to slipping on the steps and catching his side on some sharp object when he fell. The story held due to the lingering scent of beer and the basement looking like a hurricane hit it. After the front door closed and the authorities were gone, Brian brought Damien into the living room. "We can't just keep him here," Ethan murmured, his brow furrowed in worry as he glanced over at Damien, who sat quietly in the corner, eyes wide with curiosity. "We have to find a way to help him," I added, my voice firm. "But we can't take him in ourselves. None of us are equipped for that." Mark nodded in agreement.
"Damien needs a proper home, with people who can take care of him."
Brian sat quietly, deep in thought. He knew he couldn't take Damien in himself, as much as he wished he could. "Guys, there's a youth shelter downtown," I suggested, breaking the tense silence. "They have resources to help kids in situations like Damien's. Well, not exactly like Damien's, but they can help. They can provide temporary housing and start the process of finding him a more permanent solution." Brian looked up, a plan forming in his mind. "I know someone who works there. I can call and make sure they understand Damien's situation. They'll take care of him." Brian gently approached Damien, crouching down to his level. "Hey, buddy. We're going to take you somewhere safe, okay? Some nice people are going to help you." Damien looked up at Brian with wide eyes, a mix of apprehension and confusion in his gaze.
"Who? Can I stay with you?"
Brian spent the next few minutes gently explaining Damien's situation to him and letting him know that he will be fine. After a night of long rest, I drove Brian and Damien to the shelter the next day. We drove in silence to the youth shelter downtown, where caring staff greeted Damien with open arms. They listened attentively as Brian explained the situation, ensuring that Damien's needs would be met. Damien looked at Brian with tears in his eyes.
Will I see you again?
Brian smiled warmly, placing a reassuring hand on Damien's shoulder. You know what? Yeah. I'll come by once a week to see you and tell you all about our adventures back home, he said with a wink. But for now, let's focus on getting you settled. As we left the shelter, Brian glanced back one last time, watching through the window as Damien was ushered into a warm, safe environment. We did the right thing, I said quietly, breaking the silence as we walked back to the car. Yeah, Brian agreed, his voice tinged with emotion. He's in good hands now. With Damien settled in the youth shelter downtown, Ethan, Brian, Mark, and myself gathered around the cursed oak table in the basement. We can't risk anyone else getting hurt because of this damn thing. I nodded in agreement. It's too dangerous for anyone to have. That damn thing kept me locked in a room, forced to be a witness to what you guys had to go through. We need to burn it. Mark looked around at us, feeling a mix of anger and relief. My parents' farm is nearby. We can take it out there and destroy it safely. We all nodded in agreement, ready to fix this mistake that, at first, sounded like a good idea at the time. With a collected effort, we carried the table into the cool night air as the sun set. We loaded it into my truck, and Mark directed me to his parents' secluded farm nestled in the rural countryside. The headlights cut through the darkness as I drove down the winding dirt road. The air was crisp and still, the only sound the crunch of gravel beneath the tires. We arrived at a clearing near the edge of the forest, where the moon cast ghostly shadows on the tall grass. This looks like a good spot, Mark said quietly. We unloaded the table, laying it out carefully on the ground. Ethan produced a canister of gasoline from the truck bed and doused the wood with fuel. Let's do this, Brian said, his voice resolute. Mark struck a match, and flames erupted eagerly to consume the cursed artifact. We watched in silence as the fire crackled and danced, accompanied by green smoke that seemed to scream, casting flickering shadows against the trees. That ends that, I said solemnly, my gaze fixed on the burning table. As the last embers faded into the night, a weight seemed to lift from our shoulders. We stood together, staring at the ashes of our shared ordeal. Oh, we did the right thing, I said softly, breaking the silence. Yeah, Ethan agreed quietly. Next time, just order a table from IKEA. The only curse will be watching you struggle putting it together. Everyone laughed as we all walked back to the truck. The drive home was quiet, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Back at the house, we gathered once more in the basement, surrounded by the lingering scent of mildew mingled with the familiar aroma of coffee, beer, and pizza. We cleaned up the mess, and I set up the 2 picnic tables back in the center of the room. These will do fine. We all went back upstairs, turned off the light, and closed the door. As we returned to our studies, jobs, and beloved games of Dungeons & Dragons, we knew we would carry with us the stories of Damien that Brian would tell us and how he would share with the boy our journeys into Agraroth, or as he knew it, home. I also learned a valuable lesson about cheap deals and the consequences. And with Brian's help, Damien was finding his own path, surrounded by people who care for him. it was a small comfort in the aftermath of our adventure. A reminder that sometimes, even in the darkest hours, there could be hope and a chance for a new beginning. One day, out of curiosity, I went to confront that old geezer about the table at the antique store, just to find the place abandoned. I wasn't surprised, especially with the trouble that damn table gave us. I am currently researching anything that might shed some light on the history of it, but so far, I could only find information related to cursed books. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening to my story. I truly appreciate it. With this one, I have been waiting so long to do a D&D story because I am a DM myself. So the original story that the AI and myself and the AI were working together on was Cursed Dice, but I needed something a little better than that. So actually with the antique store and the table, it worked out perfect. Problems with the AI. It could not differentiate the characters' names to the D&D characters' names, so it kept on mixing those up. After a lot of frustration and time, I just accepted what it gave me and then fixed it in post. So there's a lot of me and my friends playing together in this story, and you can definitely sense it. And I had a lot of fun with doing the AI pictures with these projects. That has become more and more fun to create. And then of course I use Canva to edit some pictures together. But I try to get away from repetitiveness, but at the same time, new pictures are really time consuming. So I'm really more about getting the story, having you listen to it, rather than looking at like all the pictures and stuff. So that's it for now. And remember, I do have a link to my Buy Me a Coffee because I do love coffee when I'm doing my stories. And it's not required, but it is truly appreciated. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. When you do that, it really goes a long ways to the channel, giving it traction and spreading it out for more people to find. So thank you very much for that. And if you do comment, I will reply to you. With that, remember, it's okay to be scared. I am too. Embrace the strange, embrace your imagination, and I'll see you in the next story.